Okay, Councillor Trevor, you can start the meeting.
Okay. Well, thank you. Welcome everyone to today's Planning Committee meeting, our first formal meeting where we are all attending remotely. We will take things slowly, so every application gets due consideration. All microphones will be muted unless you indicate you wish to speak, at which point I will call out your name and your microphone will be turned on. We do have public speakers for some of the planning applications being considered today, and they will be introduced at the appropriate time. I would remind members that this meeting is being recorded. The aim is to live stream the meeting, but if that fails for whatever reason, the meeting will continue and a recording will be uploaded onto the council's website at the conclusion of the meeting. The translation has been agreed, and I hope all members have chosen which version that they want. So I'm now going to move on to the agenda. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Jane, is there any apologies for absence?
Just one apology, Chair. Councillor Dave Roberts.
Thank you. Item 2 is declaration of interest. Do any members want to declare an interest in any of the planning applications under consideration? Alan?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's item number 0/47199. I actually sit on the place plan board at Abergele, but I'd consider the interest to be a non-prejudicial. Therefore, I intend to stay in the meeting and take part in discussions and voting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. Any more?
Yeah, Councillor Pauline Trevor.
Yeah, Pauline?
Yeah, I declare a personal interest in the same item as Councillor Allen at 0/47199, and I also sit on the Abergele Place Plan Board. But I've never commented on anything to do with these advertisements, so I'll just watch the meeting but won't comment or vote on it.
Okay, Councillor Pauline, thank you. Right, item 3 is the urgent matters. I'm not aware of any. Jane or Sharon?
No, Chair, no urgent items.
Thank you. Item 4 are the minutes of the previous meeting. I'm sure members would have had an opportunity to look at the previous meeting minutes held on the 11th of March 2020. They are from pages 5 to 13. Could I have a member who will propose that we accept them as a true record of the meeting? Councillor Alan Hunter, thank you. So if
do we have a seconder?
Yeah, Councillor Sue. Thank you. Okay, members, if you are all favour of the minutes, can you just indicate that you are agreeing to those minutes? So you can either put your hand up, or if you want to, if you use the participant button, you can actually go down and raise your hand down at the bottom right of the screen. Yeah. Okay, I think that's, yes, I think that's a majority, that, isn't it? Thank you, members. So we move on to item 5. This is the planning applications. And the first application is reference 0/47068. It's the conversion and extension of the old board school to create a new Penderyn Whisky Distillery and Visitor Centre at the old board school, Lloyd Street, Llandudno. I now like to, because we've got public speakers, I will now introduce the public speakers at this point before we go into discussion. And can I first invite Mr. Charles McTeer, who is speaking against the application first, and could you acknowledge that you can hear us, Mr. McTeer?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, well, you may now, discuss this application with the committee, and you have 3 minutes to address the committee. And when you have 30 seconds remaining, we will remind you. So in your own time, you can address the committee. Thank you, Mr. McTeer.
Thank you. Distilleries give off smells. No guaranteed solution to prevent this has yet been found. Gorgie, a district west of Edinburgh, grew up around North British Distillery, founded in 1885. In 2009, at the behest of the Scottish Environmental Protection Agency, they undertook to build a 100-foot odour control tower to deal with the smell. Despite that, on a windy summer's day, the smell can still reach the centre of Edinburgh, 3 miles away. Now, an odour impact assessment regarding Penderyn's application for a distillery in Swansea has been lodged here, presumably in support of this application. An important part of that assessment, a sniff test, took place at the distillery in the Brecon Beacons. One assessor, not the recommended 2 or more, carried out the sniff test in February with the temperature at 3 degrees. Even the smell from a sewage treatment plant is dramatically diminished at that time of year, as any member of Finham Golf Club in Coventry can confirm. Now, Pamela Dalton is a senior research scientist at Monell Chemical Senses Centre, a research institute in Philadelphia. She has said odour molecules become airborne much more quickly in a warmer environment than in a colder one. As a result, the cold reduces people's ability to detect smells. In addition to that, even a cursory look on Google Earth shows that neither site bears any similarity to the site in Llandudno. The Penderyn site is clearly rural. The Swansea site is urban industrial with a small number of residential properties 90 metres to the northwest of the site, upwind of the proposed distillery. The Llandudno site is plumb in the centre of a residential area. And I'm sure most people have no objection to the building being a Penderyn retail outlet and even using it for meetings, tastings and events. It could even be fully fitted out as a distillery, and tours could still be carried out without any actual production process. On these tours, what people see are principally the trappings of a commercial production operation. If their integrity as a working distillery is offended, produce 1 cask of spirit a year.
30 seconds left.
How can it even be contemplated to allow a factory to carry out an industrial process, giving off an unpleasant smell right in the heart of a residential area? This site is surrounded by and within spitting distance of residential properties. It is no place for an industrial operation of this nature. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McTeer. Thank you. Now can I call on Mr. Neil Quigley to make representation to the committee, please. Mr. Neil Quigley, you also have 3 minutes, and we will remind you when you have 30 seconds remaining. Okay, in your own time, Mr. Quigley.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our application is for the development of a boutique distillery in the old board school building on Lloyd Street. Such facilities, situated in urban areas like Holyrood in the heart of Edinburgh and the City of London distillery in the financial district, are more and more common these days, and it is here we will produce a brand unique to North Wales, a single barrel a day that will be as rare and precious as Welsh gold. It will involve the renovation and repurposing of a listed building, restoring and maintaining the original characteristics of the school, such as the large open spaces of the hall and classrooms, along with some innovative additions. We've kept an open dialogue with council members and consulted the general public on a number of occasions. The first, a public meeting in Llandudno Town Hall, following a leaflet drop to houses that surround our proposed distillery, and the second at the closing of the Lloyd Street Archive, which was publicised by the council's archive staff. Our plans were first publicised back in September 2019 in an article on the North Wales Live website following the Welsh Government's announcement of support. We've responded to inquiries from the public and council officers, such as Environmental Health and Highways, and published our responses via the online council portal. These centred around 3 areas of odour, noise and traffic. We understand that some locally view this as a new industrial process, but you will see that independent assessment of our significantly larger current operation has shown a negligible impact on our environment in terms of odour and noise. This boutique operation will result in only small volumes of around 2,500 litres per 2 weeks of spirit being on site at any one time, which will be transported to our South Wales facility for maturation, removing the concerns of fungal growth. We are aware of our operating environment and will control the noise from those operations and deliveries to the facility, an average of 7 vehicles per week, planning movements to happen after 07:30 and before 19:30. We anticipate the majority of visitors will already be staying in the town and will walk to the visitor experience. This is, after all, an additional attraction to the Llandudno scene. However, we will attract visitors from farther afield and have provided an off-road landscaped private car park to avoid congestion to the local streets. We've spoken to local residents, near neighbours and council officers and believe we have addressed the points brought forward in those discussions. This will be a unique attraction from an iconic Welsh brand in a much loved Welsh town.
30 seconds.
Attraction to the visitor experience in Llandudno, supporting local businesses as visitors seek food and drink in the town. The facility will generate good quality, accessible employment, starting with 13 posts in year 1 and rising to 17 year 3. The building will be renovated and repurposed, meaning future generations can enjoy its architectural heritage, and it will support both Conwy Council and the government's strategy in terms of development, tourism and the economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. Can I now invite Councillor Pat Hebron, who's the member for Mostyn Ward, to address the committee. Councillor Pat, you also have 3 minutes, and we will remind you when you have 30 seconds remaining. In your own time, Councillor Pat.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor. Hello, everyone. Local residents have expressed strong concerns about a distillery being located close to where they live, surrounding the Old Board School in Lloyd Street, Llandudno. 21 objections have been received, including those from local guest house owners. The noise from increased traffic is one concern. On this site, as part of the distillery process, general refuse, tanker effluents, raw material and barrels of alcohol will be collected and delivered, an average total of 3 journeys every 2 days. Added to this are 46 car parking spaces. An increase in heavy goods vehicle traffic could also give rise to safety risks. The point of access to the distillery is the very small Lloyd Passage, which has limited manoeuvring space in between houses, and I sent you photographs of this earlier on. There are further concerns about the heavy pressure on road surfaces in this small passage, which could damage water mains. Residents highlight the inappropriate industrial use of the land close to where they live and the slurry waste byproduct. Further noise from equipment linked to the distilling process and plans for 3 working 8-hour shifts over a 24-hour period are also concerns. Additionally, there is also the potential for vermin attracted by the stored grain, CCTV cameras, ethanol, and the possibility of odours from the whisky distillery process. In the planning application, reference was made to odour and noise assessments carried out at the Brecon Beacons Penderyn site. Caution should be used when applying these positive assessments to the Llandudno site. The Brecon Beacon site is located rurally, approximately 70 metres from the nearest house. In contrast, the planned distillery in Llandudno will sit incongruously very close, 20 feet from residential properties and near guest houses. If this planning application is passed, assurances are needed that the hosting of evening corporate events will remain small scale and controlled.
30
Also
seconds.
needed are assurances that the whisky production process will not now or in future include the maturation stage. This will ensure byproduct deposits of whisky fungus will not accumulate on buildings and threaten our pleasant ambience of Llandudno, a town which some call the Queen of Welsh resorts. Finally, we should consider very carefully whether a working distillery involved in the use of industrial processes could
Thank you,
damage the
Councillor
amenity
Pat.
of the area. Thank you.
Councillor Trevor, can you?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. I should have unmuted. Okay, members, I'll hand over to the planning officer, Mr. Dave Watson, who will go through the details of this application. Mr. Watson.
Sorry about that. I've just unmuted. I think we're going to be showing the slide presentation at the same time. I think we are, but I'll carry on anyway. There isn't actually anything in the addendum. All the information's in the main report, and which is a fairly comprehensive report, which brings everything up to date. We've had this application in since January time, and with the delay between planning committees and the April meeting being cancelled, we've had more time to resolve matters and bring things forward. So it's a comprehensive report which contains all the representations and all the responses from the consultees. So I'm happy to answer any questions that any members might have. Thank you. I will let the slide show just run, I think, if Julia can sort of move it on to the photographs. Basically, we're just showing the main submitted documents, the drawings that have been submitted, and then we have some photographs of the site surrounding. So obviously the current one there you're seeing is the site as it is with once the demolition works have started. I think we'll carry on with the photos for the time being. So we have, as I say, there's hoarding around the front of the site. The applicant commenced the demolition works that were approved previously. They've commenced those, and the site, as I understand it, is still boarded up. Ideally, we would have done a site visit with members for this application. We haven't had an opportunity to do that with the current coronavirus situation. So we have quite a lot of photographs that we can show you of the site, which we can obviously come back to if members want us to. If Julia moves through them, I'll just carry on. We took photographs of the roads surrounding the site, so you can see what the existing roads. You've got Lloyd's passage around at the back of the site, which circles the existing car parking area. If Julie can move through these photographs. Some members might well remember the site because we did a site visit there, not to look at this application, but to look at the application for the demolition works. We did that it must have been the March meeting. So we can come back to these photographs if members want us to. These later ones show we're going to move on to the ones that actually show the backs of the adjoining properties that are on that back onto Lloyd Passage. So these last photographs are showing the adjoining properties, and I think that's we're now getting to the end of the photos. Okay, so if I hand back to Trevor, the chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Okay, members, I'll now open the debate for members. Please indicate whether you want to speak by pressing the raised hand icon on the screen, or alternatively physically raising your hand to draw my attention to you. When you've finished speaking, please press the lower hand on your screen. If for any reason I do not see that you want to speak, please feel free to interject. You are able to switch on your own microphone if required, but please try and avoid interrupting other speakers. I think I have on the participants page, if we start with that, I have got some hands raised here. So Councillor Sue Lloyd-Williams.
Pnawn da, diolch I chi, Mr Cadeirydd. Mi byddai'n siarad drwy gyfrwng y Gymraeg. Wel, dwi'n croesawu cais yma. Dwi'n diolch am adroddiad sydd yn gynhwysfawr. Mae yna gymaint o wybodaeth yma. Fel sydd wedi cael ei ddeud yn arferol, mi fasen ni wedi cael ymweliad safle yn basen, ond mae'r lluniau da ni wedi weld yn barod gan yr swyddog wedi bod yn ddefnyddiol ofnadwy. Dwi'n wrth darllen drwy'r adroddiad, dwi'n nodi o dudalen 31 eitem 27 o ran yr elfen dwristiaeth, ac yn wir o be fedra i weld ynglyn â'r cais yma. Mae o'n mynd i fod yn hybu cyflogaeth, hybu twristiaeth, yn economaidd dda i'r ardal, ddim yn unig i Landudno, ond i'r sir ac yn ehangach, ac i ddiwylliant yr ardal yn ogystal. Dwi hefyd yn darllen, dwi'n nodi hefyd nad oes gwrthwynebiad gan Gyngor Tre Llandudno nac ychwaith gan Dŵr Cymru yn ogystal â'r rhai eraill, ond jyst i nodi hynny. Felly dwi yn bodlon i gefnogi yr argymhelliad sydd o'n blaenau ni prawn heddiw, ac i ganiatáu cynllunio gydag amodau. Ond mi faswn ni hefyd yn hoffi adio y mod i yn dymuno pob llwyddiant a pob lwc i'r ymgeisydd os ydy'r cais yn llwyddiannus prawn heddiw, gan gymryd i ystyriaeth y cyfnod yr ydyn ni o'i mewn ar hyn o bryd. Ond hapus i gynnig y cais ar argymhelliad i ganiatáu cynllunio gydag amodau. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Councillor Sue. I've now got Councillor Nigel Smith. Councillor Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, David, and the slides. I have to say that I am rather concerned that we are looking here at proposing not only a visitor centre, but a chemical plant right in the middle of a residential area. And for me, that raises a red flag. I think that we are in danger of travelling roughshod over the local residents and the residents of Conway to try and use up what is a listed building and to bring some small amount of additional employment into Conway. And I question whether there are more suitable rural sites within the county, in particular possibly the Ffrwd in Kemmel Bay, or the Mochtra site, or other industrial sites that are more suited to an industrial chemical process and we should be mindful that this is a chemical, an industrial chemical process, not just a visitor centre. I don't think I can support the application in its present form, but I have a question to the officers. Do we have the powers to limit the amount of production should we wish to approve this application?
Mr. Watson, can you answer that?
Yeah, I think my mic's on. As far as I'm concerned, we could limit the production. We could limit it in a physical sense in terms of the volume of production, but also we could limit if we wanted to, the hours and the sort of duration of the activity. Initially, it's proposed to be 2 8-hour shifts. I think from 6 in the morning until 10 at night. I think that's the right number of hours. But so in theory, we could limit both the hours of operation, which would limit its impact, but also we could limit its actual amount of production. And we can also limit things like other things that affect amenity, like delivery hours and hours of the visitor centre and things like that.
Okay, well, I would personally, because I feel that we all want the visitor centre and the attraction. And, you know, if it was a visitor centre operating from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, we wouldn't have an issue of that. But if it's a chemical plant with heavy vehicles coming and going between 6 in the morning and 10 o'clock at night in a residential area, nobody would want that. And I think the application is muddying the decision making of our members by having it as a dual application, as a commercial industrial operation and a visitor centre rolled into one. And I think the members should be mindful of that. I would like to see the production limited to a small scale, you know, once every month or once every 6 months, to keep down, you know, but personally, I think they should be producing off-site and just having it as a visitor centre. But if we could limit it down to, say, 1 or 2 barrels, just to say that it is a distillery and keep it as a visitor centre, then I would be far happier with that. Thank you, Chair. I will speak later on it.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel. Councillor Andrew Hinchcliffe.
Hello, it's Andrew, yes. My main concerns, I have visited distilleries before and they're usually immaculately clean and usually the most you get out of them is steam, but I will take on that there must be some distilling. But if you're going to visit a visitor centre which produces whiskey, you expect to see a still operating. That's what happens with microbreweries. That's what happens with other distilleries. I don't think it's a question of there not being a distillery. My main concern is the narrowness of the access at the rear. It's not terribly clear whether there's a one-way system, whether there's the most direct access for heavy vehicles to the back. I can see that you can't get in from the front. It wasn't awfully clear from all those photographs of the little roads, which don't appear to allow cars to pass one another, what sort of flow would be there for the car park or for vehicles to come and go from. I'm sorry, my iPad is really playing up. I'm using my phone. I haven't been able to see the agenda. It just didn't appear on my iPad. So I need to know what the traffic situation is at the back. I don't have a real problem with the distillery or the visitor centre. Thank you.
If I could come back to the officers, perhaps Mr. Watson or maybe Richard, if he's there.
Trevor, I was going to find the information about the proposed hours of operation of the visitor centre and the sort of scale of the visitor centre, which is also information that's been submitted. I can find that now, but I think it'd be useful if Richard could comment on the access suitability in terms of the width of the access and the volume of traffic.
Richard, can you come in there, please?
Yes, good evening, good afternoon. Because of the extant permission of the development and the existing Lloyd Passage, where all we can do is really condition safety improvements on Lloyd Passage and the junction with St Mary's Road. And because of the way that it will be utilised, it's felt that the vehicles will be coming in together in one direction, doing the tour, and then tend to leave. So the risk of two vehicles actually coming head to head is similar to what was there currently in use. But we will be requesting some road safety improvements on Lloyd Passage and a crossing point to aid pedestrian movements to and from the development and the town centre.
Thank you, Richard. Dave, have you managed to look up those figures, or do you want me to get another member in?
It's in the report. I think it's in the report more than once, but in the main bit of the report where it describes the transport statement, it talks about the operational hours that are proposed, and it says the visitor tours would be hour-long tours between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m, and they would be restricted to 20 visitors per hour. So that's the kind of scale of visitor activity that would take place and the hours of that. And then it says corporate events would be in the evenings by appointment, and again they would be limited to between 10 and 20 attendees. The retail outlet would be open between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m, 7 days a week.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Could I bring in Councillor Chris Cater now, please? Councillor Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, firstly, I'd like to say that I think we're very fortunate this Grade 2 listed building with all its characters and layouts and challenges is suitable for such a development. And I support that. And I also am pleased that we'll get new employment in the town and we can offer such a tourist attraction. Regarding what Mr. McTeer and also Councillor Nigel said about the distilling side of things, I went to veterinary college in Edinburgh, right in the centre of Edinburgh. College was surrounded by residential and commercial premises, and that has since been, the building has since been converted into a cultural and community centre, which includes a microbrewery and a gin distillery. And I've been to it since, and it works very successfully. It's an excellent tourist attraction. And as far as I'm aware, there's no problems with the residential properties surrounding it. And this is in the centre of the city of Edinburgh. So I really don't think that the position of this on Lloyd Street in Llandudno will be a problem. I would also like to say that there'll be a lot of tourists within Llandudno, which will be just walking, ambling along to go to this attraction. It won't all be coach parties and so on. So I will second, I think Councillor Sue made a proposal that we went with the officer's recommendation and gave this planning permission, and I would like to second Councillor Sue.
Can I just come in there? Councillor Sue, can you just clarify that? I wasn't aware that you actually said you were proposing it, but just to keep it sort of, you know, on board, are you making a formal proposition to approve it? Thank you, Councillor Sue. Yeah, and Councillor Chris has seconded it. Can we continue now with members who want to speak? Can I bring in Councillor Peter Lewis, please?
Well, thank you, Chair. You did mention that earlier on that we hadn't had the benefit of a site visit, but I think most members actually attended when we discussed the demolition of the old flat roof area. And I think that's been a particular benefit to the whole setup afterwards. And I think many of us will have seen these Victorian buildings that have been renovated over time within our own county, where deeper and larger windows have been put in to the benefit of them. So from that point of view, design and that, I'm very much in favour. And I think it's to the credit of the applicant that he's also agreed to the front door amendments too. I think when, as you indicated, Councillor Chris, if you look at the report, there's a considerable amount of information there. And I think both our highways officer and our public protection people have looked at this, the various aspects that some members have raised today, and they've raised no issues. And I think Llandudno Town Council too have been supportive of this. I know they made a couple of conditions which I think have been addressed, but I think by and large, if Llandudno Town Council is supportive of this, we as the committee should support it too.
Thank you, Councillor Peter. Can I now bring in Councillor Ivo Lloyd? Ivo.
Diolch Cadar. Ie, o'n i jyst yn mynd i fod yn gefnogol i'r cais yma hefyd. O'n i am eilio fo, ond mae Councillor Keita wedi curo fi. Dwi'n meddwl bod hwn yn lygad i le. Hefyd, fyswn ni'n hoffi gweld asesiad neu ail-edrych ar yr amodau masnachu mewn tua 12 mis i wneud siŵr bod pawb yn hapus. Ond mae hwn yn rhywbeth arbennig. Cynnyrch Cymraeg yn cael ei werthu mewn tre Cymraeg. So mae'n hollol synhwyrol. OK, diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Councillor Ivo. I bring in now Councillor Austin Roberts. Austin.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Fel rhywun sydd yn derbyn botel o penderyn bob dolyg gen I fab, a sy'n ni fwynhau o yn ystod y flwyddyn, mi fasai'n rhagrithiol o'na I o wrthwynebu y cynllun yma. Dwi'n meddwl bod o'n gynllun delfrydol I Llandudno. Mae Llandudno yn dibynnu ar twristiaeth. A dros y blynyddoedd, da ni wedi gweld y tre yn dirywio I radda. Dwi'n meddwl bydd hwn yn ateniad ychwanegol i'r dre ac yn siŵr o ddenu bobl i'r dre. Felly dwi'n hollol gefnogol iddo fo. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. Could I bring back in Councillor Nigel Smith, please? Councillor Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I've listened to my fellow members, but I still have a few questions and a few concerns. The only impact assessments that I've seen for this distillery are from Swansea City Council. And they found that the operating odour was no issue and that the noise was no issue. But I have to say that having Googled where Penderyn's distillery is at this moment, it's in the middle of the countryside, in the middle of nowhere, and not set in the middle of the Queen of Resorts, a fully functioning holiday centre with many residential properties around it. And I have a question for my members to think about and for the officers. What happens if we grant this application and then we find that, you know what, this commercial chemical plant in the middle of our Queen of Resorts and in the middle of our residential area does cause an issue? Where do we stand? Are we able to close it down? Are we able to limit its production to protect our residents and to protect our tourism that we are very precious about? Or is it just goodbye, it's gone, and that's it? So it's all well and good. We all welcome the development of this empty listed building, and we all welcome the visitor centre, but it comes with a caveat, and that caveat is that we're getting an unregulated, untested industrial chemical plant attached to it. And I have grave concerns on that, especially when it's operating between 6 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night, pumping out, we don't know what. It may be pumping out no effluent smells, but it may be pumping out a hell of a stench. And that would absolutely crucify all the businesses in Llandudno. All the holiday visitors would not want to come. And we need to be mindful of that. So what assurances do we have from our planning officers that if there is an issue with odour or with noise, how can we address those issues? That's what I want to know, Trevor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nigel. Can I bring in Councillor Pauline Williams now? Councillor Pauline.
Thank you, Chair. Most of the things I want to say have been covered, to be honest. So I'm not going to repeat everything. But I know I've looked at this application a few times. There's indeed so much information to look at, and I've considered the constraints of the site, and I know it's a listed building, and I've looked at the constraints of the listed building. I'm a little concerned about the large windows and the effect on the building, but all things considering, I'm happy to approve this this application, because I think it would be quite a gem for North Wales, for tourists and for bringing people into Llandudno. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pauline. I think Councillor Ivo Lloyd wants to come back. Councillor Ivo?
Yeah, thank you, Trevor. Yeah, I don't know if you actually noted this, but I did ask for a condition for every 12 months to see how things like emissions were going. Basically trading standards. So after 12 months, we see, are they producing the right amount of emissions? Is everyone happy? So we could do that on a 12-monthly basis. It takes a long time to produce whiskey. Yeah. So we need to know, as we're going on, whether everyone's going to be happy, especially on the pollution element of things. So amodau masnachu is basically the trading conditions that they have in place. So I'm sure we can do that as a planning condition.
Thank you. I know I've got Councillor Phil, but I think I saw Councillor Ken waving his hand about at me. So I'll bring in Councillor Ken Stevens. Councillor Ken.
Thanks, Chair. It's just a number of I wanted to know basically, I thought it was 7 wagons, did you say, were going down this road a week? That's what worries me. I mean, we all on the site visit, we saw the building itself. It's a shame a building's got in such a mess. But and I must admit, I think we can control the smells, etc., etc. But what worries me is that little narrow alleyway. We're having 7 wagons going up and down there a week, plus coaches, etc., etc. That's what worries me, Chair. The access more than anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ken. I now want to bring in Councillor Phil Capper.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. With reference to Nigel's question, do we have access to an answer as to if we have any recourse for action if it does prove to be a problem? That's my question.
Yeah, well, I'll bring in Mr. Watson, the planning officer. Thank you. Mr. Watson.
There has been, a fair amount of discussion between the environmental health officer and the applicant about odour control and noise and the impacts. And it's initially the environmental health officer was asking for more information, but the applicant has answered or responded to those requests by explaining more about the scale of the activity. And now we've got to a point where the environmental health officer doesn't object to the application. And the environmental health, but that isn't an end to the story, because the environmental health officer is recommending conditions. So effectively, the matters to do, all the issues to do with the plant and the equipment and the ventilation and the noise outputs and those sorts of things are all things which are still going to be controlled under the conditions that the environmental health officer is asking for. So those details are going to have would have to be submitted to the authority. and we'd have to decide whether they're acceptable or not. And if we then accept the scheme, the odour control in terms of its noise and its likely odour output, we would only be doing that if we were satisfied that it wasn't going to be causing a difficulty. So it's still a subject that's not, we haven't got to a final endpoint yet. It's still a subject of discussion and agreement with the applicant. I'm confident we can agree something that will be suitable. I think once we have agreed those details with the applicant, I don't think we could have Councillor Ivor suggested a sort of 12-month review. I don't think we could do that. I think if we do grant this and then we approve details under the conditions, I think we could perhaps do it on the sort of limited start basis to begin with, and that would give us an element of review, and that would arguably be a control over the volume and a control over it being 2 shifts rather than 3 shifts. So I think we could do that to start with and see whether that's acceptable, and before moving on to allowing 24-hour production. But I don't think we couldn't say that odour's been a problem and therefore you can no longer operate the use at all. I think that would be something which would be unreasonable, and we couldn't enforce those sorts of conditions. So we do have control. It's still a subject of discussion. We're not likely to approve anything unless we're satisfied that the odour and the noise is acceptable, and we can have an element of review, but in terms of allowing a more limited start, and then before it expands to a 24-hour production.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Councillor Dave Cowans, did I see you signalling to me?
You wanted to come back, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sorry. I will. Yeah.
My mic's still on. I've not been muted.
No, carry on, Phil.
Yeah. So, just for clarity's sake, then, are we saying that if they didn't meet the agreed limits, if it were to exceed it, we could do something about it? And if that's the case, I'm content with this application. But just for clarity, I want to know if they exceeded what was agreed by the Environmental Health Officer, would we have a recourse to action because of that exceeding the limits? So
to come back, Trevor,
yeah.
We don't have an agreed set of conditions yet with the Environmental Health Officer. So that's still something we have to sort of work towards. But in theory, it could include a noise level limit on the site, on the boundary of the site, at the back of an adjoining property, something like that, which would give control. And if that was then exceeded, it would mean we'd have action open against the applicant if they were to exceed that noise level. So if we went down that route of a specific noise level limit, then that would give us control to control the operation to bring it in line with that. We don't yet have that agreed yet with the Environmental Health Officer. So the Environmental Health Officer could alternatively just say that we need an operational plan that needs to be adhered to by the applicant, and then we would be controlling those aspects of it, whatever came into that environment, that operating plan, and that would be a different way of doing it. So there'll probably be a combination of these things, but I don't actually have a clear, in answer to Councillor Kappa's question, we don't yet know quite what the conditions are going to be able to say how we would then react if there's a breach of those conditions. Is that a bit of a vague answer? I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Yeah, back to Councillor Dave Cowans. Dave, did you indicate on the screen that you wanted to speak? No? Okay, fine, thank you. Councillor Alan Hunter. Alan?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just maybe something Richard could answer. I can't tell from looking at the maps here. There's been concern about the vehicles moving down the alleyway and reference to coach parties. With a lot of places like hotels, when coaches turn up, they turn up at the front of a building, they drop off, the coach goes away and comes back to collect. So could that be addressed by not allowing the coaches down the back of the building? Did they drop off at the front? And is there any possibility of the deliveries and collections being done from the front of the building. That would save heavy vehicles going down the alleyway at the back. Just a question for highways really, and whether that could be conditioned. There might be something for Dave as well. Thank you.
Richard, could I ask you to come in there if you could answer that, please?
Yeah, the coach proposal is to the front, and there'll be a condition that the TRO existing will be needed to amend it at the cost of the developer for the front. So that's what they've got planned, to my knowledge anyway, that coaches will drop off at the front, go away, and then come back, as you said, to collect them. Deliveries, I would need to pass that today, because I'm assuming it's been designed in a way that the deliveries are to the back, so they're not through the front. But we didn't have any real concern that the change of use from what's existing, with deliveries for the previous use being in the same format, maybe a different size. But as I said, with the road safety interventions, even minimal on Lloyd's Passage, and we could put some sort of signage up to say, if two oncoming cars were to come together, that they have to go back into the development site rather than onto the road, which again can be controlled in the 278 and be put in at the cost of the developer if he's willing to do so, which I'm sure he will.
Thank you, Richard. Alan, is that satisfactory for you?
I think Dave was going to, I think Richard asked Dave to come in and just comment on the proposal not to take heavy goods vehicles around the back. But it may well be that the building doesn't lend it to do that. So we'd be interested to see if Dave's got any comments on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dave,
so, well, the deliveries are to the back of the building. It's only the pedestrian access for tourists from the town centre and the coaches that will be using that will be arriving at the front of the building. Everything else is at the back. But just in terms of the sort of scale of, I think members should be aware of the scale of servicing that's been suggested. They say that it would be avoid the busy times. Effectively, it would be after 8 in the morning, but before 10 in the morning. And that would not be significantly different to the time of council's refuse and servicing operations generally. So that's the time that they're proposing. They say there's a minimal level of servicing in terms of raw materials and the finished product. It would amount to an average of 1 vehicle movement per day, and would generally be vehicles that are not HGV size. And consequently, the concern of HGVs using Lloyd Passage leading to a significant noise issue is unfounded. So we're not talking about a high volume of servicing, and we're not generally talking about large service vehicles. I don't think it actually says there wouldn't be any HGV ever, but it does say that they're not generally HGV size. So it's smaller vehicles by and large, and it's 1 per day on average.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Councillor Nigel, I've got you down to come in again.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, very interesting what David Watson was saying there about a phased production to see how things go. That would be something I would be most interested in, having seen the effects of approved application in the Kimmel Bay area that affected residential properties with a chip shop that was approved by officers, but it affected the neighbourhood, and it's still an ongoing issue. But once the permission is granted, there's nothing you can do. So I'd be happy to explore the phased production, see how things go. Could you explain a little bit more about that, David? And what could we start the limited production at, and see if the neighbourhood, or see if there's any issues?
Yeah, do you want to come back, Dave?
My understanding is the proposal is ultimately to potentially operate it for 24 hours, but they're saying that initially it would be 2 8-hour shifts, and rather than 3 8-hour shifts, which would be 24 hours. So they were saying it's initially 2 8-hour shifts from 6 in the morning until 10 at night. That's 16 hours. That would be what I would suggest would be a reasonable beginning phase, and then as a limit, and then if it was seen to be not harmful or not unnecessarily harmful or whatever, then the council could consider making it a longer production.
I mean, personally, I'd like to see it as a one 8-hour shift for a few months. Let's, for say 3 months, see how that goes on. Then up the production to 2 8-hour shifts for the next 3 months and see how that goes on. And then if everything's okay, open up to full production. I'm not against the investment. I'm not against the visitor centre. I'm just really, really cautious of us granting permission for an industrial chemical plant right in the middle of our top holiday resort. And if it goes wrong, it's going to be real egg on our face. And I'm very, very concerned about that. And I'm hoping that my members are mindful. We all want this investment. We all want the jobs, but we don't want to put our foot in it and cause a major upset to tourism in North Wales and our Queen of Resorts. We get one shot at this, members, and we need to make sure that we get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel. I've got Councillor Peter Lewis next to speak. Councillor Peter.
Well, thank you, Chair. I think members have had too long a holiday. I think they're forgetting that it's quite normal practice that once we give an approval, that it's subject to the officer's delegation and to putting it in place those issues. And I think if members had read the report in detail, they would, a lot of the issues that have been raised today have been covered. And I'm quite happy with the recommendation as it stands and the way it's going to be implemented. So all this talk about all these additional conditions, I'm afraid, are quite unnecessary.
Thank you, Councillor Peter. Councillor Ivor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There's only one thing that I've got a reservation with, just looking back. We're storing grain on this site. I'm not reading anywhere a pest control programme. Is it something we could implement by condition, or am I missing the point?
I'll come back to Mr. David Watson for a reply there, if possible.
To be honest, I don't know the answer to that. It's not something I've readily picked up. I'm not aware that it's been covered so far. It might have been covered in what's been submitted, but I'm not aware of it. But I think if it's something I can liaise with the environmental health officer about, and if they think there's a pest issue, then they can flag it up before anything's determined, and if necessary, we can control it.
Thank you, Councillor Phil Capper.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. I think one thing that we should consider is that this is going to be a dual use site in that it's a tourist issue, but it's also providing employment which is not connected with tourism. And given the present situation with tourism in North Wales, I consider that to be valuable. It demonstrates that there's more sort of resilience to the operation. So I'm just making that point. Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I haven't got any more speakers, but I would just like to say, I think when people were talking about the conditions, I think, to be fair to Councillor Peter, he did bring us back on track and reminded us that these are obviously subject to the officers taking this on board. So I just like members to think about that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the voting, and we had a proposal from Councillor Sue Lloyd that we approve the application, and that will be subject to the conditions and the officers as per normal, and it was seconded by, if I remember rightly, Chris Cater. Thank you, Chris, for that.
Chris, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Right, so is there any amendments to that? Councillor Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. Well, you know, you say it's down to officers to sort out the fine print, but there's no guarantee that I've heard from David Watson that there will be a limit on production to see how things go. We've talked about it, but I would like to see that into the into the agreement that we're going to be proposing now, that there is a limited production to see how things go.
Are you making that as an amendment or as an alternative?
Well, I'm asking Councillor Sue Lloyd-Williams if she will put that into her, as she's going to propose this application, that there should be, you know, a small production, see how things go, and then ramp it up. If there's no issues, I'll be happy for that, if Sue is.
Well, what's Councillor Sue's thinking about that? I've got Councillor Ivor who wants to come back. Councillor Ivor?
Sorry, Councillor Ivor.
Hear me now?
Okay, yes, we can hear you now.
I think if we tie these people up too tightly, too tight a knot, then there might be a viability issue here. They need to be able to trade. They need to be able to produce something to make it economically viable. What I'd like to see is to see that what they do produce there isn't emitting anything dangerous into the environment. I prefer to see an environmental assessment time. That's what I'd like to see. If you want to step it up every 3 months or whatever, that's fine. But they need to make some kind of form of money to be able to warrant setting up in Builder Street.
Okay.
Councillor Nigel.
Sue Lloyd-Williams now.
Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi, Mr Cadeirydd. A dwi yn teimlo yn hollol fodlon hefo'r argymhelliad dwi wedi wneud yn barod o edrych ar yr hyn o blaid trwy caniatâd cynllunio gydag amodau. Dwi'n ddigon hyderus os oes yna broblem yn codi bod gynnon ni yr swyddogion, yr adrannau o fewn yr sir, yr awdurdod, I ddelio hefo problemau os y gynnyn nhw godi. Dwi yn hyderus o hynny. Dwi ddim yn teimlo bod rhaid I ni roed add-ons o gwbl i'r argymhelliad. Felly, Cynghorydd Nigel yn anffodus ar yr achlysur yma, dwi ddim yn mynd I gyd-fynd hefo'r hyn da chi wedi gynnig. Dwi'n sticio hefo yr argymhelliad dwi wedi wneud o blaid trwy caniatâd cynllunio gydag amodau sydd wedi cael ei eilio'n barod. Diolch.
Okay, Councillor Nigel, you've got your answer there.
To be honest, Chair, I haven't, because there's no guarantee come forward from David Watson that if the plant gets up and running and there is an issue with, with discharge, there's nothing we can do because we've agreed to it, and it's too late. We've had the same issue here in the east of the county with a retail business, but what you're talking about in Llandudno is an industrial site, totally different to a chip shop. You're talking of something on a far larger scale, and I have grave concerns over that. And I would rather see that we start off with a small production, grant a small production, see where that goes after 3 months. If there's no issue, ramp it up to two shift production. We're only talking small scale of time, but we've got to be sure that there's no issue. And up to now, there's no guarantee, despite what Sue Lloyd-Williams says, and despite what Dave Watson says. There's nobody guaranteeing that.
Could I come back?
I think I'll bring in, Mr. Dave Watson. Dave, would you like to come in, please?
I think it's quite clear that the members are wanting, what you might say, strict, very detailed controls about odour and noise, and it's fairly standard. I think we can address that. I think we can have a degree of 12-month review in terms of seeing how it operates and requiring a further check assessment, and then if there's a noise issue or perhaps even an odour issue, we can get the developer to sort of revisit some of their practices. I think that is something we can do. and I think that's fairly sort of reasonable if that's a concern. So I think we can probably address what Councillor Ivor has asked for, I think. But my point before was that we just didn't have the conditions set out before with the environmental health to know exactly what they were asking for and just what level of detail they were recommending. But I think we can effectively, committee can say that they want conditions to be of this nature, to be very strict, and there to be a 12-month review process, which I think can be accommodated within the conditions, so that if necessary, there has to be some sort of shift in process or some shift in equipment, so that equipment is changed. If odour or noise is higher than expected, then there could be a modification requirement for that in the equipment. So I think there is grounds to put in some process of 12-month review. I think that can be done if that's what the members are thinking. I think in terms of the numbers of amount of shifts, sorry, the amount of time scale, I don't actually know what the applicant would say to this, but one of the members said that a single 1 8-hour shift may not be viable, and I think there is a concern about that. But I haven't actually spoken to the applicant to know whether that is right or not. I was making the point that 2 8-hour shifts would be a good starting point, and I think that is still of that view myself. It's something which, if members insisted on a 1 8-hour shift initially, then I think we'd have to see initially what the applicant's view of that was, and it may not be feasible, in which case we'd have to bring it back to yourselves at the planning committee.
I've got Councillor Sue coming back here again, if I've got that right. Councillor Sue Lloyd-Williams.
O na, doeddwn ni ddim wedi gofyn I siarad eto, ond dwi'n teimlo fel bod ni'n mynd rownd a rownd braidd ar hyn o bryd. Da ni wedi cael trafodaeth dda iawn yma, ac I fod yn hollol onest, dwi yn teimlo bod Cynghorydd Nigel, da ni wedi darllen drwy'r droddiad sydd yn gynhwysfawr lot fawr o fanylion yma. Da ni wedi cael trafodaeth dda iawn. Da ni'n darllen bod ni, os ydym ni caniatáu heddiw, bod ni amodau sydd yn ddigon teg. Da ni wedi lleisio, da ni gyd wedi cael lleisio y pryderon sydd gennym ni prawn heddiw. A dwi'n gwybod bod yr swyddogion am gymryd hynny ymlaen, ond dal I fod yn hyderus hefo'r argymhellion sydd o'n blaenau ni. Diolch.
Thank you, Councillor Sue. I've got Councillor Chris Cater here. Did you indicate you wanted to speak again, Chris?
Yes, I'm happy to second Councillor Sue still. I don't think this should come back to committee. I think we're perfectly capable of deciding this today, given all the information we've had. And to be fair to Mr. Watson, he has given us a lot of assurances there. We know that we've got environmental health officers and officers that will ensure the safety of this development. And I really think that we should stand by the recommendation. I'm still happy to second Councillor Sue, and I think, as Sue said, I think we should go to the vote on this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chris. I am going to go to the vote, and we have had over an hour on this, and I think it's been thoroughly discussed. So
Councillor Dave, I think, wants to come in, Trevor.
Sorry?
Councillor Dave is Dave Cowans.
Dave Cowans.
Yeah.
Dave, do you want to say something?
Yes, thanks, Chairman. To follow up on what Councillor Chris said, I think we're looking too much at the negatives here. The applicant's very experienced in the production of whisky, and the officers bent over backwards to accommodate our concerns. And if you read the report fully, all the representations made about the negative points have been addressed and will be addressed if there's any that need addressing in the future. So I've got every confidence, as Councillor Peter has, in the officers in seeing a good result here. This is a multi-thousand-pound investment in Clandle Mill, and it's something we should really support. Seven jobs are 7 jobs at the end of the day.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. I'm going to put it up to the vote now. Right, I will call out individual committee members in alphabetical order, and all you have to do is to confirm whether you are in favour, against, or you're abstaining from the vote. So we'll start with Councillor Phil Capper. Councillor Phil?
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Cater.
In favour.
Councillor Dave Cowans.
Favour.
Councillor Pauline.
Can you repeat that, please, Councillor Pauline?
In favour.
In favour. Thank you. Councillor Andrew Hinchcliffe.
In favour.
Councillor Alan Hunter.
In favour.
Councillor Peter Lewis.
In favour.
Councillor Sue Lloyd-Williams.
O blaid.
Sorry,
Councillor-
Councillor Sue, could you repeat that again, please?
O blaid.
Yeah, I'm blind, yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Ivor.
Yma. In favour.
Councillor Dave Rees.
In favour.
Councillor Austin Roberts.
O blaid, in favour.
Councillor Nigel Smith. I'm not picking Councillor Nigel up, Jane.
I'm still not sure whether we've implemented the review in 12 months' time, so I'm going to vote against it, Trevor, because I
Okay.
can't travel roughshod over the residents of Llandudno.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. Councillor Ken Stevens.
In favour, Chair, providing the officers' conditions are met, yeah.
Yeah, okay, members. Well, that is carried, that application. So we now move on to consider this application, but this is for the listed building consent. It's the same process as above. If the speakers are not exercising their rights to speak again, then the officers are asked if they have any updates, and following this, it's open to members to speak and for a proposer, seconder to come forward, and then it moves to the vote. So if members are quite happy with that, Jane, have the speakers indicated whether they want to speak again on the listed building consent?
No, Chair. The speakers are happy to not speak now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Watson, is there any further update on the fact that we're dealing with the listed building consent?
There's nothing further, but just to remind members that it would have to be referred to CADU if the council is minded to grant consent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Okay, so we move on to the process again of the vote. Do we have a proposer and a seconder?
Councillor Trevor, I think a few members have indicated
All right.
they'd like to speak.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Sue Lloyd-Williams.
Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi, Mr Cadeirydd. Jyst i gyd-fynd ar cynnig yr argymhelliad sydd o'n blaen i hysbysu cadw bod y cyngor sir o blaid rhoi cysyniad adeilad rhestredig gydag amodau. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi, dwi'n cynnig hynny.
Thank you. That's a proposal with the CADU attached. Yeah. I've got Councillor Andrew Hinchcliffe.
I would happily second that.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. Councillor Peter Lewis.
Going to second it too, Chair. But I think the fact that both our Conservation Officer and Gwynedd Architectural Planning Services are in support of it is enough for me.
Thank you, Councillor Peter. Okay, there's no other members down to speak, although Councillor Sue has proposed we approve the application for listed building consent. Do we have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Ivor, I see, is in the... Oh, I think he just beat you to it, Councillor Ken. Councillor Ivor. So, do we have any other proposals? No. Okay. Just bear with me, members. So it's the same again. I'll just call your names out alphabetically and just indicate whether you're for, against, or you're abstaining. So Councillor Phil Capper.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say I particularly like this voting system in that I get to speak first time every time. So I'm in favour.
In favour of the voting system or in favour of the application?
Both.
Right, okay. Thank you, Councillor Phil. Councillor Chris Cater.
In favour.
Councillor Dave Cowans.
Favour.
Councillor Pauline.
Councillor Pauline, can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, in favour.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pauline. Councillor Andrew Hinchcliffe.
Second it or not, I don't know.
You're abstaining, are you?
No, I thought I seconded it. I'm in favour.
Oh, right, okay, okay. I still have to ask formally, Andrew. Councillor Alan Hunter.
In favour.
Councillor Peter Lewis.
Councillor Peter, could you repeat that, please?
In favour.
Thank you.
Councillor Sue Lloyd Williams. Yeah.
O blaid.
O blaid, yeah. Councillor Ivor.
O blaid.
Councillor Dave Rees.
In favour.
Councillor Austin.
O blaid.
Councillor Nigel.
Against.
Councillor Ken.
In favour, Chair. It would be nice to see this building returned to its original condition.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ken. Okay, members, that is approved. That's carried. So we can then now can I, before we move on to the next application, could I ask, please, thank the speakers for attending today, and then can I ask them now to be to leave the meeting, please, so that we can continue with the agenda. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Can I just ask, Jane, have the previous speakers have left
Yes,
the meeting now?
they've left the meeting.
Mr. Charles
Mr. Charles McTeer.
I think he might have gone.
He's gone now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, the next application is reference 0/47085. It's the conversion of a former chapel to provide 2 semi-detached dwellings. It's the Horeb Chapel, Bryn Rhyd yr Arian, Llansannan, Abergele. We do have a speaker, and I'll invite Miss Sioned Griffiths to address the committee. And can I just thank you for your patience, Miss Sioned, waiting this time. So if you'd like to address the committee, you have 3 minutes to address them, and you will be reminded with 30 seconds remaining.
Okay.
In your own time.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I've noticed most of my concerns in my letter dated the 9th of March, but I also wish to highlight that the design and access statement submitted by the applicant contradicts itself in parts, for example, in its description of the proposed septic tank. And it's also misleading when referring to its research to support the application. The statement refers to the proposed holiday let as an exciting opportunity for the local community. However, if the applicant had made inquiries with the local community, he would find that there are concerns that any small economic benefit would come at a much higher cost to the culture and Welsh language of Bryn Rhyd yr Arian and Llansannan community. This proposal, if permitted, is depriving our community of a potential small family home whose residents would be far more likely to contribute to the local economy and community. I refer to the Council policy on cultural heritage, which states that the Council is committed to protecting and encouraging developments which support and sustain the long-term well-being of the Welsh language, and believe that this proposal does not fulfil this aim. As neighbours, we believe that we're significantly overlooked by this proposal, and though we accept the planning officer's comments that a small road separates our property, Bryn Myfyr, from Capel Horeb, the proposed design, with its exaggerated large windows, would lead to a previously private area, our home, being overlooked in our opinion. The chapel currently has small stained glass windows, which affords us some privacy, and this is extremely important to us. The overdevelopment of the site would also make it overbearing due to its proximity to our yard and to our house. Our neighbours at Ffrwd share our concerns, as they are also impacted significantly by the opening of the rear of the property to a glass frontage with balconies, which would allow them no privacy at all on their property, as their land includes the grazing land surrounding the rear of the chapel. We completely agree with the concerns raised regarding highway safety. The plans and designs do not fully show how steep and sharp the bend on which the chapel is located actually is. And apart from the obvious issues associated with parking on the highway, increased traffic caused by visitors coming and going, and the noise implications of this to us as neighbours, there are also concerns with regard to increased pedestrians on the road. Due to the chapel having no outdoor space, if families with
30 seconds.
If families with pets or children were to stay at the property, the only outdoor space is the road in front of the property. There are no green spaces to use in Bryn Arian. Our neighbours at Ffrwd keep livestock in their land surrounding the chapel, and they wish to raise concerns that loose dogs or children may use the field, worrying livestock just due to the lack of the outside space. So thank you, and hope you consider my comments.
Well, Mrs. Griffiths. Okay, members, I'll now hand over to the planning officer, who I believe is Mr. Kerry Thomas, and if necessary, Julie will provide any slides or presentations to view. Okay, Kerry?
Okay, thank you, Chair. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
There is just one item to report on the addendum, and that is that the ecologist has recommended that a protected species survey has been carried out. We haven't received a protected species survey, and therefore we cannot be sure that there isn't a potential damage to well, essentially bats. The recommendation is still minded to refuse planning permission.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. I'll now open the debate to members, and I've got first Councillor Sue Lloyd-Williams. Councillor Sue.
Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi, Mr Cadeirydd, diolch yn fawr. Wel, mae'r cais yma o fewn yn ward D, fod chi'n ymwybodol, dwi'n siŵr. Ac heb ddawt, mi fasa yr cais yma wedi bod yn un o'r rhai ar gyfer ymweliad safle yn sicr. Mwyn I aelodau gael gwell dealltwriaeth am rwymedigeuthau'r safle yma yn arbennig gyda parcio. Mae yna nifer o bwyntiau ac da ni wedi clywed llawer iawn ohonyn nhw wedi cael eu nodi yn barod gen Sioned. Dwi'n meddwl y rhai pwysig a nodir o fewn 4A a 4B o fewn yn pecynnau ni aelodau. Mi welwch chi fanylion yma. Mae pernogaeth y tir yn dal I fod yn fater heb I sortio gyda'r cyngor sir ynghyd â chymydog yn berchen tir o fewn y cais. Parcio yn sicr yn broblem. Mae o'n safle sydd ddim yn caniatáu ceir achos mae'n ffordd reit beryg hefo traffig yn pasio. Yr septic tanks hefyd a silkwe yn isiw. Un o'r pethau sydd yn bwysig I mi, a da chi wedi clywed Sioned eto'n sôn amdano fo, ond o fewn yn cefn-gwlad ni ydy'r datblygu tai fforddiadwy ynde. Da ni'n sôn o hyd am dau fforddiadwy a'r angen sydd gennym ni o fewn cefn-gwlad. Ac mwyn cynnal yn cymunedau ni, cynnaladwyedd o'r iaith Gymraeg a'r diwylliant, ac yn sicr dydy'r cais yma ddim yn ffitio'r criteria, oherwydd mae conversion ydi o hefyd. Mae gennym ni bryder yn wir, mae holiday lets yw'r rhain, tai ha, ac nid tai ar gyfer pobl lleol, ddim ar gyfer defnydd y pobl ifanc hynny, yn pobl ni o fewn yn cymuned, o fewn yn ardal wledig ni. Felly dwi'n edrych ar yr argymhelliad sydd o'n blaenau ni, aelodau, ac dwi'n cytuno o blaid gwrthod caniatâd cynllunio. o ran, dwi'n edrych ar nad ydy'r cais yma yn cyrraedd gofynion polisi HOU12 ynghyd â materion parcio, priffyrdd a hefyd bioamrywiaeth. Felly gwrthwynebu i'r cais. Mi faswn ni yn hoffi nodi y mod i yn mynd, os gai fynd â chi yn ôl at 4A o fewn yr adroddiad, o fewn y pecyn, mae yna sôn gan asiant yr ymgeisydd, os fedrai ddod o hyd iddo fo, by bringing back to life a property and the community that has long been in decline. Wel, gai nodi nad ydy Bryn Rhydder Arian ddim in decline. Mae gennym ni y fywyd byrlymus o bobl sydd yn byw yn Bryn Rhydder Arian, sydd yn rhan anator o gymuned Gymreig a ward Llansannan a'r ardal ehangach o fewn Sir Conwy. Just i nodi hynny sydd yn bwysig. Ond o blaid gwrthod caniatâd cynllunio. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Councillor Sue. Could I take that as a formal proposal, Councillor Sue? Thank you. Next speaker I've got down is Councillor Peter Lewis.
Well, thank you, Chair. I think it's regrettable that a more acceptable design hadn't been forwarded by the applicant here. I think that there are many examples around our county where chapels have been tastefully developed, and I think the applicant would have benefited from looking at some of those. Whilst I appreciate and accept that it's good that somebody's coming forward to develop a redundant or dilapidated building, I have to say that in this instance, I have to support Councillor Sue in going with the officer's recommendation to refuse.
Yeah, could I take that as a second, Councillor Peter?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Just to keep making it more efficient. I've got Councillor Ivo Lloyd now down to speak.
Thank you, Chair. So ni just yn hoffi cefnogi'r argymelliad hefyd. Mae o'n hollol anaddas lle mae o. Os ni'n dweud bod yna yn blwmp ac yn blaen, point of saturation o'r math yma o capeli wedi cael ei trosi a math yma o llefydd i ddod i aros yn ardal ni. So ni'n hoffi gweld rhywbeth bach gwahanol, deud gwir, a dydy o ddim mewn lle addas. Dwi'n hollol ymwybodol o'i leoliadau ar yr all. Dydy o ddim yn lle da i fynd efo ceir a trio parcio. So dwi'n hollol cefnogol i'r argymelliad yma. Diolch.
Thank you, Councillor Ivo. Councillor Chris Cater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I mean, I've got quite a few chapel conversions in my ward, in Penryn Side, Bryn Pydau, in the villages in my ward, and they've been done very well, but this doesn't, I've got a bad feeling about this one as well, and I think I would support refusal. It's a shame that a lot of chapels don't have any land, significant land around them for parking and safe access when you're thinking about developing them. And I do hope that something will be found for this chapel, because it sounds as if it's just going derelict. And I'd like to perhaps ask Councillor Sue if she thinks there are possibilities for that chapel as we are heading, I think, to refusing this application. Is there any hope?
Mm-hmm. I will let you come back, Councillor Sue.
Oh. Wel, diolch I chi am adael mi ddod yn ôl. Faswn ni'n gobeithio, be fyse yn arbennig o weld fyse creu anedd ar gyfer bobl lleol. Dyna sy'n ei licio weld. Dyna fyse yr ideal ac yn berffaith ar gyfer yn ardal gwledig ni. Ond hyd yma, dybed os wneith yr ymgeisydd ail gysidro ac edrych ar yr elfen gymunedol a'r angen sydd o fewn yr ardal gymunedol. Fi raid aros a gweld ar ôl heddiw wrach. Ond rhaid deud dim mwy na hynny'n anffodus.
Thank you, Councillor Sue. Got Councillor Nigel Smith next. Councillor Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. Am I missing something here, Chair? It says 2 semi-detached dwellings. It doesn't mention holiday dwellings or holiday accommodation. Am I missing that? Anyway, I've got a question for Kerry Thomas, because I'm mindful of the fact that in the rural communities we are short of affordable accommodation. And are we able to stipulate that if permission was to be granted, that this accommodation could only be used as a permanent residence, affordable residence, and not as a holiday accommodation? And also, you know, I've noticed that we've not had an ecological report, and we'd need that. So, you know, if we were to grant subject to an ecological report, and that we stipulate this can only be used as an affordable accommodation, could we stipulate those clauses, Kerry?
Well, there are 2 things. Firstly, I'll deal with the affordable housing first, and essentially the affordable housing policies in the LDP, whilst they cover most situations, they don't cover conversions in the countryside. So effectively, we wouldn't be able to require it to be affordable under the policies of the current LDP. With regards to the second question, I understand that the need for a protected species survey has been requested from the applicant. We haven't received one. Our ecologist has asked for a predetermination survey. So in other words, that we have that knowledge before we grant planning, or essentially before we determine the planning application. It's not something that can be conditioned after the event. So I'm afraid the answer is negative to both questions.
Okay, well, as the word affordable housing doesn't always sit with affordability of some people, could we specify that these are for full-time occupation?
Kerry?
Yeah.
If we could specify that these 2 semi-detached properties are only to be used for full-time occupation, subject to an ecological report coming back, I would be happy to support that, because I would feel that then they would be affordable to the local community. So if that's the case, then I'd be happy to support the application.
I think the danger is that the policy, national policy, gives higher precedence to economic uses, which include tourism, than housing when it comes to conversions. And essentially, we're in a situation where the policies that essentially, if we were to preclude holiday accommodation, that would actually be against policy, because the policy actually supports tourism. So I don't think there would be a policy justification for that condition.
Shame. Yeah. Because if it was only restricted to full-time occupation, it would undoubtedly be affordable to many people in the rural communities that can't afford to get on the housing ladder.
I do note your concern, but I can only advise on the basis of policy as it is now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel. Councillor Peter Lewis.
Well, I just wanted to come back to Nigel, really. It's not only the ecologist report. I think it's the absence of a parking facility there, which is also a significant reason for refusing it.
Thank you, Councillor Peter. Councillor Andrew Hinchcliffe. Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say, I mean, I hate to lose a building in the countryside, a chapel, although many chapels convert reasonably, very few convert beautifully, but this one would be much better were it to be made into one piece of accommodation with space taken for parking out of the front or something, and have just one house. But that isn't what we're being asked for, so I am in line with Sue as going against it.
Thank you. Councillor Ken, you didn't indicate you wanted to speak, did you then?
Councillor Ken, do you want to speak?
No, I'm all right, thank you.
Thank you.
He's waving his hands about. Sorry. Okay, I haven't got any other members down to speak, so we'll go to the vote. I have had a proposer and a seconder to refuse the application. Is there any other alternative proposal?
Chair, I believe legal, Lisa wants to come in.
I have to come, yeah. Oh, yeah, I can see the hand now. Okay, Lisa, if you want to come in. Thank you.
No, I was just double checking actually that you did have a seconder. Who seconded the application, please?
Yeah, it was Councillor Peter.
Councillor Peter, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and there's
Yeah,
no other proposals, so we'll go through the process again. Phil, you're on pole position again, so Councillor Phil Capper.
In favour of the
Sorry,
recommendation.
Chair. Sorry, members. Before we go to the vote, can I ask that you control the microphones for this bit? If you turn your microphone on and off when you're about to propose.
Oh, right. This is to the members, Jane, yeah?
Yes, to all members, if they can use their own microphones to clearly vote.
Yeah, so members, as I shout your name out, if you then lean forward or whatever and put your mic on, tell me whether you're for, against or abstaining, and then please turn your mic back off. Thank you. Okay, again, Councillor Phil Capper.
Get to speak twice.
Yeah.
In favour of the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Phil. Councillor Chris Cater.
Yeah, in favour of refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Dave Cowans.
Favour of refusal.
Councillor Pauline.
In favour of refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew.
In favour of refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Hunter.
In favour of refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Lewis.
In favour of refusal.
Councillor Sue Lloyd Williams.
O blaid gwrthod.
Councillor Ivor.
O blaid yr argymelliad.
Councillor Dave Rees.
In favour of refusal.
Councillor Austin. Councillor Austin.
Can you repeat that, please, Councillor
Sorry,
Austin?
o blaid gwrthod.
Councillor Nigel Smith.
In favour of refusal.
Councillor Ken Stevens.
Councillor Ken, can you turn your microphone on, please?
I'll do it. Trying to, but nothing's happening. Anyway, in favour of refusal.
Thank you, Councillor Ken.
Thank you.
That's carried, members. So the application's refused. So we move on to the next application. This is code reference 0/46795.
Sorry, sorry, Chair. Can we just wait for Sioned, the speaker, to leave the meeting?
Yeah.
Can we just
Sorry,
make sure
yeah.
Sioned has left?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I apologise.
Yeah, she's gone. I can confirm Sioned's gone. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, members, code reference 0/46795, Thorncliffe Building Supplies Limited, retention of workshop building, office building, tipping bay building and storage shed to cover existing activities on site, together with the erection of extension to storage shed buildings. It's at Thorncliffe Recycling Centre, Cridland Road, Abergele. I'll ask the planning officer to come in here at this point, and that's Mr. Kerry Thomas again.
Thank you, Chair. There's only one item to report, and that is there's no objection from the ecologist. The recommendation stands.
Okay, thank you, Kerry. Okay, members, any comments? Councillor Nigel Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Well, what can I say about the Thorncliffe site? I've had to report them several times to North Wales Minerals for piling up their hardcore as big as Mount Everest and visible for several miles around. I'm always cautious about further development on that site, but I don't see anything wrong with it. We just got to make sure that they don't flout the laws and the regulations, which unfortunately they seem to have been doing. But yeah, happy to support this application.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel. Councillor Ivor.
Yeah, Guy, shall I recommend it, or was that a recommendation? Was that a proposal there by Councillor Smith?
Nigel, are you making a formal proposal?
No, I won't propose it.
Right, okay. I understand.
I'd like to propose it, please, Chair, in its current state. Thank you.
Okay, proposal and seconder. I haven't got any other speakers, so we'll go through the process again. We've had a proposer and a seconder to approve the application.
Sorry to interrupt, Chair. Can I just confirm who seconded the proposal, please?
Councillor Evor, I think, wasn't it? Oh, no, you're quite right, Jane. Councillor Evor did. Councillor Nigel declined to propose. So do we have a seconder, please, members? Councillor Alan Hunter's indicated by hand. So it's Councillor Alan
Thank you,
Hunter.
Chair. Thank you, Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, members, are there any other proposals? No. Well, if we go through the same process again for voting, Councillor Phil Capper.
In favour.
Councillor Chris Cater.
In favour.
Councillor Dave Cowans.
Favour.
Councillor Pauline.
Councillor Pauline, could you repeat that, please?
In favour.
Thank you.
Councillor Andrew Hinchcliffe.
In favour. I'm going to have running out of charge, so I'll be back on in a minute.
Okay, Councillor Andrew. Councillor Alan Hunter.
In favour.
Councillor Peter Lewis.
In favour.
Councillor Sue Lloyd Williams.
O blaid.
Councillor Evor.
Obliged.
Councillor Dave Rees.
In favour.
Councillor Austin.
Obliged.
Councillor Nigel Smith.
In favour.
Councillor Ken Stevens.
In
Councillor
favour.
Ken. Thank you, Councillor Ken. Okay, members, that is carried. That for approval. And now we move on to the next application. The next application is for the installation of a single outdoor colour poster vinyls. It's A2 in size onto glazing of 4 bus shelters in Abergele at Market Street outside Broadway Court, the junction of Water Street and Peel Street, the OS Primary Healthcare Centre off Llandillas Road, and the A548 roundabout in Pensarn. The posters are part of Abergele Place Plan promotional campaign, which promotes local community life, the benefits of buying local heritage attractions, and the beach area in Pensarn, various bus shelters, Abergele, Conway.
Councillor Trevor, sorry, Chair, you've missed the application at Kai Foot's Glan Conway.
Oh, I do.
47092.
You're right, it's halfway down the page. I do apologise.
That's okay.
I do apologise. So I'll go back and we'll do it in the order as the addendum. So this is code reference 0/47092. Is to drill a 200-metre borehole at Unit 10, Kai Foot Business Park, Glan Conway, Conway. And I'll bring the planning officer in, which is Dave Watson. Mr. Watson.
There's nothing, members, in the addendum. There's no further information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Evor.
Councillor Ivor, can you turn on your microphone? Oh, it's on now. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, I'd like just to simply move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Evor. Councillor Austin.
Hoffwn i eilio yr argymelliad.
Thank you. Councillor Dave Rees.
Chair, I was just going to second the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nigel?
Thank you, Chair. What's the diameter of the borehole? And, you know, you heard all these terrible stories about young children falling down boreholes. We don't want that happening in Conway. And I've noticed that it's outside the actual unit. It's not inside the unit. So I just wonder what's the diameter of it?
Mr. Watson, can you?
I would need to check whether there's anything in the application to say that. It doesn't say that in the report, hence the question. It does say that it will be covered by a ½ metre square manhole cover when it's not in use, but I'd need to check the actual dimensions of it.
Okay. If it's, Dave, my concern is that obviously a ½ metre square manhole cover could easily be lifted by better than that, and it is a sizable diameter. You know, you don't want anybody falling down there. So if it is above the diameter of a child's shoulders, could we look at a more secure grate or something around it, possibly?
Nigel, I don't have the drawings in front of me. I actually think there will be information on the application. I'm wondering whether Julia could maybe show the beginning of the PowerPoint, which will show the drawings, and it will, I think one of them will probably show the dimensions of the borehole.
One metre diameter circle.
Okay, it's 1 metre diameter
15
circle.
centimetres.
I can't actually read it on my screen, sorry.
Yeah, it says 150 millimetres.
Okay, so that's is
15
centimetres. Is that diameter?
What's that, about 6 inches?
It's 6 inches.
Yeah, you're not going to get a child down there, are we?
Only a very small one.
Just concerned, it was in the back of my mind and I thought, ooh. Yeah, okay.
Okay, we're quite happy with that now, Councillor.
I'm very happy. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, right. I haven't got any more speakers, members. So have we got a member who wants to formally propose that we accept the application?
I believe Councillor Ibbott, Lloyd proposed it.
Can I do it again? I'd like to formally propose the recommendation.
I'll second that, Trevor.
Okay, thanks, members. Is there any other members got any other proposals? No. Okay, well, if we go through this again, Councillor Phil.
In favour.
Councillor Chris Cater.
In favour.
Councillor Dave Cowans.
Councillor Dave, can you put your microphone on, please?
For the application.
Thank you, Councillor Dave. Councillor Pauline.
In favour.
Councillor Andrew Hinchcliffe.
In favour.
Councillor Alan Hunter.
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Lewis.
In favour.
Councillor Sue Lloyd Williams.
O blaid.
Councillor Ivor.
O blaid.
Councillor Dave Rees.
In favour.
Councillor Austin.
O blaid.
Councillor Nigel.
In favour, Chair.
And Councillor Ken. It's a good job I can lip read.
In favour.
Thank you, Councillor Ken. Okay, that's carried, members. Okay. So I'll go back to my my error, which was pointed out by Jane. This is code reference 0/47199. It's the installation of single outdoor coloured poster vinyls. They're A2 in size onto glazing of 4 bus shelters in Abergele, Market Street outside Broadway Court, the junction of Water Street and Peel Street, OS Primary Healthcare Centre off Llandillas Road, and the A548 roundabout in Pensarn. Posters are part of Abergele Place Plan promotional campaign, which promotes local community life, the benefits of buy, build local, and heritage attractions, and the beach area in Pensarn, various bus shelters, Abergele. And I'll bring the planning officer in, which is Kerry Thomas. Kerry.
Thank you, Chair. Nothing to report and no change to the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. I thought I'd beat the local member to it, and I'd like to propose that we accept this application. I think, you know, advertising for local businesses, the local areas, local facilities is something that we should all be doing, and I thank Abergele for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel. I've got Councillor Alan Hunter who wants to speak. Councillor Alan. He's got his mic on, Jane.
Councillor Allen.
That's better, save the lip reading interpreter. Yeah, I'd just like to ask Kerry, the application states the size of A2. If we accept this, does it has to stay in that size, or can we have some flexibility if we wanted to change posters in the future? And that's the question for Kerry. Thank you.
Yeah, the application has been submitted is basically before you as it's been submitted. I think you would need to make a further application if you wanted to change the size of the signs.
Okay, thank you. I just want to ask that question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ivo. Councillor Ivo.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think most people know my thoughts on advertising. I'm very supportive of it, especially to a thriving town like Abergele, which needs rejuvenating after losing its market. So I'm very supportive to advertise its benefits. So I would like to second the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Dave Rees.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to support the recommendation.
Thank you.
Just a second, sorry. Eva beat me to it.
Yeah. I haven't got any other speakers. I think we have a proposer and a seconder, Jane, just to check with you.
Yes, Councillor Nigel Smith and Councillor Ibo Lloyd.
Thank you. Okay, members. So the same procedure again. Councillor Phil.
In favour.
Councillor Chris Cater.
In favour.
Councillor Dave Cowans.
In favour.
Councillor Pauline. Is the mic still on?
Councillor Pauline, can you repeat that, please?
I can't vote, Chair, because I've got a personal interest in it.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Because I sit on the Abergele placement plan.
Abstain.
Yeah.
Councillor Andrew.
Mine's bloody gone off. What the hell's happening?
Chair, Chair, I think Lisa from the solicitor
Legal.
wants to come in. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, Lisa. Yes. Do you want to give us some advice, Lisa, please?
Yeah, it was just to clarify that if you have a personal interest, you can vote on the application, councillor. It's just obviously if you have a prejudicial interest, then you wouldn't be able to take part in the discussion or vote. So if you want to vote, then you can, as discussed this afternoon. Okay.
Okay, I can vote in favour of it then, please.
Yeah, fine. I'll change that now, Councillor Pauline. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Hinchcliffe, Councillor.
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Hunter.
In favour, and can I just mention at this point, Chair, I'll have to leave the meeting at this point, so thank you.
Okay, thanks for your attendance, Councillor Allen.
Thank
See you
you.
soon and keep safe. Councillor Peter.
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Sue Lloyd.
O blaid.
Councillor Ivor.
O blaid.
Councillor Dave Rees.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Austin.
O blaid.
Councillor Nigel.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Ken. Where's Ken gone? Where's Ken? Councillor Ken, I've lost him.
Good. In favour, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, members, that's carried. And we move on to this one, which is code reference ENQ/29352. It's the variation of conditions 2 and 6 of appeal decision. The appeal decisions there on the agenda, and it's relating to the planning application 25/2015/0321 for the construction and operation of a wind farm comprising of 7 wind turbines, transformers, access tracks, on-site substation, anemometry tower and associated construction and operational infrastructure to allow for an increase in tip height for all 7 turbines from 102 metres to the tip to a maximum of 125 metres to the tip, and increase in height of the anemometry tower from 60 metres to 80 metres, and increase in associated civil infrastructure works at Pantomime, Nantaglyn, Denbighshire. And I bring Mr. Kerry Thomas in to guide us through this one. Kerry. Your mic's.
Can you hear me?
We are. Your mic's on now, Kerry.
Okay. I just want to clarify that this is a consultation by Denbighshire. It just relates to the amended plans. The original report is appended to the end of the committee report for information. There's no objection from the council's consultees, and therefore we have no objection to the proposal, subject to the comments of the Highways Department.
Thank you, Councillor.
So our recommendation is just to forward those comments onto the Denbighshire.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew.
Can I propose the recommendation?
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. Councillor Peter.
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Peter. Thank you.
Just a comment that I have 5 wind turbines from my kitchen window, and I guess because of the landscape and whatever, there's probably a difference of 50 metres in height between them. So I think, given the talk of 20 metres here, it's quite acceptable.
Thank you, Councillor Peter. I haven't got any members down to speak. I think we have a proposal and a seconder, Jane. I'm sure you'll remind me.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you, members. So again, for the final time of asking, Councillor Phil.
In favour.
Councillor Chris.
In favour.
Councillor Dave Cowans.
How quick do you stop record?
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Pauline.
In favour.
Councillor Andrew.
In favour.
Councillor Alan Hunter. Oh, he's gone. Councillor Allen's gone, hasn't he? Left. Yeah. Councillor Peter.
In favour.
Councillor Sue Lloyd.
O blaid.
Councillor Evo.
O blaid.
Councillor Dave Rees.
In favour.
Councillor Austin.
O blaid.
Councillor Nigel. Councillor Nigel.
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Ken.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you.
In favour.
That's carried, members, and that's the close of the meeting. Can I thank you all for your attendance and your contributions, especially on this new technology that we've got to put up with now. So once again, and can I just say, stay safe, cadwch yn ddiogel.